Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Tunnel Vision, a show brought to you by USCFootball.com. I'm your host, Keely Eure, joined by Ryan Abraham and Shotgun Spratling. The trio is back. It is just us today, and I'm excited. It's a good show.
No special guest.
No special guest. We are the special guest.
Yeah.
No. We have a lot to talk about in this show. The Bru McCoy drama is back. It feels like a never-ending story.
Dun, dun, dun.
The 2019 recruiting class is just
It won't die.
It won't die.
This was like just got to take the damn recruiting class out the pasture and shoot it, but it just keeps going along.
Well, we found out last week as well that there may be a player or two that may not be getting into this recruiting class from this recruiting class. So it's still evolving. You know, you expect usually things end on February, especially now with the early period.
Yeah,
most things
are ending in December.
Most things end on Wednesday, the first Wednesday of February. Every once in a while, there's one or two players. They're still, they have to make a decision. They're going to wait a minute. But no, not this year. You thought it was over. It's still going, though. It's the zombie.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. And if you don't know what Shotgun's talking about the troubles for other 2019 recruits, make sure you subscribe to the War Room. We put the latest info, good stuff in there.
Yeah.
So we'll be talking about that, recruiting news, Bru McCoy, also USC baseball news. Shotgun, it's your time to shine.
I can't believe we put that in the marquee.
We got to talk about it a little bit. Dan Hubbs was not retained, so USC baseball will be looking for a new coach at the helm. We'll talk about that. And, of course, we'll be taking your live calls, 512-4-TUNNEL. If you have a question, comment, concern for the team, and you want that question answered, be sure to call us up. I will be screening your calls and getting you live on the air. And, of course, if you want to get a hold of us, not on phone, but anywhere else, you can tweet at us, hashtag TunnelVision, just put your tweet, or you can comment on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, wherever you're watching. Put a comment. We will see it. We will answer it.
Yeah.
Guys, we got a lot to talk about today. Where do you want to start? Want to start with Bru McCoy?
Well, hold on, real quick. We want to get into it. Make sure you guys call. We've had some good calls the last couple of weeks.
True.
So 1-512-4-TUNNEL. We haven't got as many the hashtag tweets. Hashtag Tunnel Vision. Start your tweet with that. Keep it kind of short.
With it, yeah.
Or end it. Yeah. Just don't do the full 280 characters because that doesn't show up on our screen.
True.
But we'd like to get some more of the tweets up there. That would be good.
Sure. Anyway.
And this Saturday,
ooh, yes,
we have the State of the Union, the State of Troy event, which is going to be a lot of fun. Saturday at Common Space Brewery in Hawthorne, California, from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. If you want to come out and drink some cool craft beers, which I like. I don't know if you're into that, Keely. No, I like craft beers.
The gluten, Ryan, no.
Eating food from a truck, that's fun. They might have a gluten-free beer there. I don't have to check. But I love food truck food. So there'll be some food truck food there. And then, of course, we'll be there talking USC football. Unfortunately, Shotgun's going to be traveling, so he's not going to be there. But we got the rest of the staff. Gerard Martinez will be there. Chris Trevino, Dan Weber, Keely Eure, myself. From the LA Times, Arash Markazi, USC grad, he will be there. So we're basically recording like a podcast along the way. So we'll have him as a guest. We'll have Bruce Feldman from Fox Sports and The Athletic. He knows pretty much, he breaks how much college football news does he break? A lot. He breaks a lot of news. So we'll get his opinion on what's going on. For the big national picture for USC football. And then Jake Olson, you might have heard of him. Maybe. So it's going to be a lot of fun to have him out there. I saw him at the Tour de Pier. We got some pictures and stuff with him. I tweeted those out earlier. So it should be a really fun group. I think we have over 100 people RSVP'd so far, but definitely check out the site.
It's popping.
It should be popping, and it's free. Just come out. It's kid-friendly, dog-friendly. It's just kind of big open space. We'll have like a desk set up like this, and we'll have guests. And then anyone that comes, if you can come in instead of like typing in your question here or like would you call in or email in questions on the podcast, we'll just have a microphone there. You could come up and like talk and ask us a question.
3D questions.
Yeah, so if you have like a question for Jake or Arash or Bruce or any of us, then you could just come up and talk with us. So it should be, I'm looking forward. It should be fun. We're bummed you're not going to be there, Shotgun.
Yeah, Shotgun.
Sorry, I'm missing out on a lot Saturday. I got a birthday party I was supposed to go to. I got this I was supposed to go to. I got family in town, but I'm leaving. I got to go.
Carmen San Diego, Shotgun. Where in the world is he?
Yeah, I think this is going to be the 7th of 8 weekends that I'm going to be on the road. So.
Oh, wow.
You can tell it's late in the baseball season. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, you were in like Hawaii and stuff.
I was covering baseball there.
Yeah, look,
sad.
I didn't see any baseball pictures on you.
Yeah, true. And one thing we did not mention at the top of the show, we could have some breaking news during this show. USC could get a commitment, so we could be having some news. So stay tuned for that as well.
Yeah.
Jack Eure is going to be committing somewhere at 7 p.m. So dun dun dun.
Sometimes they say 7 p.m. and it ends up being like 7:30. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Could be during the show, but I saw him in person recently. Like, we can talk about that if that comes to fruition. He's the son of Ron Eure, who's, was the first overall pick in the NFL draft and All-American and Hall of Fame, all that kind of stuff. So, legacy guy.
Yes.
But we needed some brew, right?
Yeah. What's brewing with Bru?
Did you like that? There's a lot of puns you can put, like, things in the name. So if you don't know, because there's a lot of people maybe don't follow recruiting, I'll give you like the 35,000-foot level. The number one prospect at USC signed in this recruiting class was Bru McCoy, 5-star athlete, played wide receiver, linebacker for Mater Dei High School, certainly a pipeline high school for USC. There were some questions, like he's going to sign. He committed at the Army game, I think he
announced at the Army All-American game.
But he already signed like a week before or something.
We believed he had already signed,
even
though he tried to say he had not.
Yeah.
Which then he enrolls in January at USC. He's there for, I believe, 2 weeks, maybe 2.5.
2 weeks, yeah.
And then he said, peace out.
Yeah, Cliff Kingsbury at the time, if you remember. We had a really good conversation with Gerard Martinez for our Trojan Blast recruiting podcast. Check that out. It's for subscribers only, but he goes into a lot of detail about what was going on here. But if you remember back in January, it was a very I wouldn't say everything was buttoned down as far as the USC football machine goes. It was there was a lot of weird stuff going on, and there was no strength and conditioning coach at the time. So Ivan Lewis had left, took the top 2 or 3 guys with him. So you were having a middle of the road strength guy running the off-season workouts. It was a sense of disorganization there. Obviously, the offensive coordinator had left, so you didn't have your biggest hire, the savior of the program, walked out, and soon after that, Bru McCoy walked out, and he ended up signing with Texas. Went through spring football down there, but now, and Chris Trevino, I think, was the first to put it out there. Greg Biggins has been super tied in with the Bru McCoy camp and there's a lot of information up on USCFootball.com. You can check it out. And we had heard rumblings about this, seriously, 2 weeks ago. We were talking about putting something in the war room or whatever, but looks like it's happening. He's actually in Los Angeles. The Texas coaching staff is in Los Angeles or is flying in here or whatever. That's happening to try to talk Bru McCoy into coming back. He's not in the NCAA transfer portal as of right now, so you just don't know what's going to happen with that. But once he goes in, USC can't contact him unless he's in the transfer portal because he's still a Texas football player right now. Clay Helton just can't call a Texas football player like, hey, you want to come to USC? That's tampering. Can't do that. So we're expecting probably something a little bit later this week. If his name goes in there, that's probably when it's going to happen. The likely destination is he would end up at USC where he initially signed and was already enrolled there. This is a very unique and strange situation because, look at the people in his recruiting class, guys that are graduating, like Jason Rodriguez, right? He's graduating he's going to his prom, he's graduating, and he's going to get to USC. By the time he gets to USC, Bru McCoy could have been transferred twice to colleges, someone in the same recruiting class. We just haven't seen anything like this before. It's completely bizarre.
And that's what the transfer portal has done. It's kind of changed things. Obviously, there's more people in the transfer portal than there are initial counters available, so you wonder what's going to happen with players. I think it was a great idea by the NCAA to give the players more opportunities and stuff. And it was a move that helped the players out, making things easier for them. However, it's kind of made it's provided some unintended consequences. So you're going to have to see what the NCAA does to remedy some of those. Are they going to eliminate initial counters? Are they going to, what's going to change there? Is it, you're just going to rely on the 85, or you're not going to be able to, I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but are you going to have a certain amount of transfer spots you're allowed each year? How is it going to work? There's going to have to be more changes that come because of what has happened with the transfer portal and how things have changed. And now you see a guy like Bru McCoy, is he still an initial counter for USC?
He is, yeah. That's what we understand.
Yeah.
But I think that's a really excellent point. I don't want to step on you.
Go for it.
So So the way scholarships get counted, there's 2 counts. There's an initial counter that you can bring in 25 players every year. That's capped, so you can't do any more than that. Like if you can count backwards, if you had leftovers, you can count those, but it's pretty limited. And then the overall number is 85. Like you can't go over that. The problem with the transfer portal is, and this is where we haven't even seen like the super effects of this yet. I mean, we're starting to see it, but you're going to see a lot of guys end up at, and we talked about this before, FCS programs, if they're going from FBS, like Power 5 to Group of 5, it's going to be hard to go from good to good unless you're like Justin Fields. Like you're like a stud, you're definitely going to end up somewhere. Like a Bru McCoy, that's fine. But there's just not a lot of spots because of those initial counters. People signed their whole recruiting class. They don't have room. You can't add somebody. Even though you have 82 guys on scholarship, you have no more initial counters left. And I think the way to tweak, I feel like the NCAA is going to tweak this because there's going to be a lot of guys probably dropping down to like Division II, Division III because there's thousands of guys in the transfer portal, and there's like dozens of Power 5 spots. So it's really, and there it goes down each level. But I feel like you're going to see some sort of tweak needs to happen from the NCAA, and maybe it is a tweak to the initial counter. I don't know if they would get rid of initial counters because they don't want to like make it too crazy, but for transfers, they might not count for that. Or if you have someone transfer out, that gives you an initial counter to transfer somebody in. Because then, USC's lost like 11 guys that were transferring out and only brought one in because there's no more room to bring anyone else in. But if you could say, oh, USC, you lost 11, we'll let you bring in, or half, or whatever, every 2 guys you lose, you got to bring in 1. Something like that, I think, would be a great. But for USC, the way we understand it, I speculated this about Bru McCoy, and then we got confirmation from different sources. Bru McCoy was an initial counter for USC because he signed with USC, enrolled in USC. Then he left. He still counted. So that was one spot USC couldn't use. He goes to Texas. He is an initial counter at Texas as well. If he comes back, he won't be in another initial counter because he already counted towards this class. So it's sort of like his spot was taken, he left, and it's like he could move back into that same spot. So USC wouldn't lose another one. But like stuff like that, these nuances of the rules, you've never had to talk about because no one's ever like within a 3-month span like transferred out of school and then transferred back.
And you look at Florida. Florida's actually lost 3 players from their class already. I mean, Chris Steele leaves and transfers. He's committed to Oregon now. USC's still trying to work on that, it sounds like. But he left because his roommate, Jalen Jones, got into some trouble, and he didn't want to be involved in it. Jalen Jones has already transferred to Jackson State. DeJuan Black is another guy that was in their class that has already transferred or never stepped foot on campus. He has already left.
Signed, but then transferred.
Yeah, he's already left the class. So that's 3 guys that are leaving out of class. So what I'm thinking of is a new coach comes in. Obviously when a new coach comes in somewhere, there's attrition. You're trying to get your type of guys in, the guys that kind of fit your playing style. So there's going to be some transfers out. So when that happens, if a team loses 10 or 11 guys, similar to what USC had this past year, are they going to be able to bring some extra guys in, or are they going to be hampered by a smaller roster, and you're going to see more new coaches struggling early?
Yeah.
And then, with the pressure that's being put on coaches these days, you're going to see even more turnover over and over because you're given basically 3 years to turn everything around when that's not even a full recruiting cycle.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how the game evolves. It's just another segment of evolution in college football, I think.
Yeah, I think if you even look across town, like USC's in an okay spot because they have 82 guys on scholarship, not a lot of seniors. That's fine. But like with UCLA, and you had a lot of turnover with Chip Kelly on that roster, they churned a lot. They're down to like 70 scholarship players. It's like they're under sanctions. Like it's hard to really recover from that. So you have a bunch of guys transfer out and no real way to replace those guys. I think that's something the NCAA needs to address. Maybe it's like a USC sanction thing. You don't get that. But if you have guys transfer out because of whatever, like coaching change and stuff, give that school, that program, an opportunity to bring other people in.
As far as Bru McCoy goes, we mentioned on the Peristyle that homesickness was part of the reason why Bru was feeling the way he was feeling in the last 2 weeks. As far as other schools circling the waters, if you will, Cody B760 tweeted at us and said, is there any other school in on McCoy? But the real question, I think, is, would Bru look at any other schools besides USC if he is thinking about leaving Texas?
Yeah, it seems unlikely at this point. I talked like on the Trojan Blast recruiting podcast, that question that came up. I did some radio interviews and they had asked that. Where would he end up going? It didn't seem like there was a great connection with UCLA. It seemed like it would be more of a local school. If anyone on the West Coast outside of USC, Oregon's the team that's been doing that. Now they had to try to make room for Chris Steele. They didn't have room for that. They figured or somehow figured out a way. You'd figure the same sort of thing with the Bru McCoy, but from the sources and stuff we talked to, it just seems unlikely, Cody, that would be the case. Most likely scenario, he either goes back to Texas or he ends up at USC.
Yeah. I mean, how much do you think his modern-day teammates are kind of in his ear right now that he's home for the past 2 weeks? How much does that kind of affect how, if Bru's already feeling homesick and then you're back with your best friends, essentially, how much does that influence what you might decide?
I think it's going to have a big impact because it's not only the guys that he was playing with, it's the guys that he could potentially be playing with later. Bryce Young is the next quarterback commit at USC. That's the guy who was throwing the ball last year. Well, before that, he had JT Daniels. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, there's a bunch of players. There's players that USC still recruiting, like Miles Murrow, the offensive lineman, guys like that. We'll see how much impact those guys have. I think that definitely plays into it. Yeah. When you come home and it's like, oh, there's my boys. I could be hanging out with my boys all the time. Versus, hey, I get to see you guys, twice a year or whatever it is now when you get to come home for break. So I think that's definitely playing into it.
Yeah, and I think the modern day family, there's a real family there with football. I think the dads seem to be on some text thread or something. I don't know. They seem to know what's going on with the modern day and USC football. So I think that's definitely a part of that. Having people he's close with on the team. So Greg Wiggins kind of went into some of the details. He wouldn't say everything about a lot of the reasons. I think homesickness was definitely one of them, but he wasn't really divulging a lot. But Greg's been great. I mean, he's really tied in with what's going on with that, and so stay tuned. It's a wild ride. I don't know. Usually it's kind of a slow time. I've had a whole bunch of interview requests just to talk about Bru McCoy, some Southern radio it was like Southern Network. I forget the guy's name, but it was it's like in the South. It was like 40. He's on 40 radio stations. He just talks SEC football all the time. They wanted to talk about this. So
is that Paul Feinbaum?
Oh yeah, I was gonna make.
It's sort of like a Paul Feinbaum light. It's sort of like that. Yeah.
Light. Ryan, as you mentioned, Texas was kind of caught off guard by this and sent a brigade to California to try and persuade Bru. How much do you think that could impact Bru?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly could have some effect. Most of the sources we talked to seem to think he's in LA now for a reason, and basically has made up his mind. You wonder when he did decide to leave USC, the kind of turmoil that was going on in the program. I think a lot of that is gone. You feel good about Graham Harrell, and you feel good about the offense, where you didn't with Cliff Kingsbury last year. It's it's just more turmoil. There's just so much turmoil around this program, and I can't emphasize enough. Not having a strength and conditioning coach when you're going through off-season workouts, it can't be that organized. And you're a guy like Bru McCoy who's coming in and it's like a machine at modern day. It's really well run. It couldn't have looked well run when he got to USC, And I think some of it's sort of like a grass is always greener sort of thing. But it's just USC looks like it's in a much better spot now. The players seem to respond to Aaron Osmus very well, obviously with with Graham Harrell and stuff. So, yeah, it's just one of those things. It's just kind of strange. Could they have? Yeah, I think they could certainly impact him. I mean, that's their his head coach Tom Herman. He's a really smart guy. But my gut feeling is just he came back. You make that decision to kind of come back to LA. I just don't see him going back.
Yeah, and they brought up. It's interesting to me when you hear from what we've heard. I haven't fully got the official word on it, but that they brought Herman, they brought his receivers coach, who's the passing game coordinator as well, Drew Maringer. They brought the quarterback, Sam Ehlinger, with it.
Yeah.
There's so many restrictions when you're actually recruiting a player. There's certain things certain food that's allowed on a recruiting visit and stuff. The story about the bagel and whether it can have cream cheese on it type thing. And yet, once you're signed and technically in the program, we can bring our quarterback out with us. Yeah, we can bring everybody.
He's a Texas football player.
I don't know. So an extra flight's allowed for him. Is that an extra benefit? Did you say, Sam Ehlinger, he can go? We're giving him a flight to L.A.
Did he pay his own way? That was what I was.
Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of interesting.
So there's so many different things when a player is actually committed, though. But it's interesting. It's an interesting situation, obviously, and you wonder what it will impact the final decision. And how quickly is that final decision being made because of how blindsided USC felt when he went to Texas, and now the same thing with the Texas coaches. They felt blindsided as well. It's he's made up his mind. in private, and he's not talking with anyone. So is it going to help Texas to bring a whole bunch of people out here and talk? Because, it's not like he went through this discussion with the coaching staff previously at USC or Texas. So now is he going through this discussion, and does that change his mind? I think there's a lot of factors there. Don't forget, but homesick, but also I believe he has a girlfriend in Southern California too. Don't let that, the weight of that factor in as well. With JT Daniels being here, JT Daniels is one of his best friends. I was looking up, I was trying to find where I talked to him last year and talking about JT Daniels. And I said, have you been up to USC and, just check on JT and how's he doing this during the season? He said, no, but he comes down to school. We still talk a lot. He's still one of my best friends. Our relationship hasn't changed. I'm really happy for him. Now, this was in October when he was talking to me about this. But then I asked him, what do you kind of talk about, you guys? And he's like, yeah, we talk about football a little bit, but it's, it's just life stuff.
Yeah.
And has he built that connection with someone? Him and JT Daniels go way back. They've been playing together for, I think, 5-6 years before JT, moved up classes to leave. So, I think that, when your best friend's away and you get a chance to hang out with your best friend, you're like, man, this is cool again. I forget how much. When I go and hang out with my friends back on the East Coast, I'm like, man, I wish I could hang out with these guys more.
Yeah.
So it's a pull on the heartstrings at the same time. So I think that's a big factor playing into it, especially for an 18-year-old. You always got to remember these kids are 18 years old, and the emotions are a little bit different than you may perceive them as an adult looking back at it.
Yeah, and I think you had a good point there when you mentioned the USC coaches were pretty much blindsided by this. Now there was a lot going on, like we said, because there was so much turmoil. You don't expect the guy that you signed to lose them. And the good thing, and I know Clay Helton gets a lot of criticism. What Clay Helton did was he was the nice guy, and he was like, you know what? If you don't want to be here and you would rather go to Texas, you got my support 100%. He did not stand in his way. He did not cry and pout. I put cry and pout together to make crowd. He didn't cry and pout about it. He was not, and he was like, hey, we want what's best for you. Well, that helps now because if he's not happy in Texas, he's like, you know what? When the things were as bad as they could be, and I basically, walked away from Clay Helton, he was still there for me. And now, I think that's one of those things where you could say, hey, I can come into the fold, and he wouldn't feel as bad about it because the way they broke it up, if you're in a relationship and you break up and it's like, I understand, you're, whatever, and if you want to ever get back together, if you left burning bridges and stuff, then you're probably not getting back together. Well, Clay Helton didn't burn any bridges, and now he still has that opportunity.
And how about the ironic quote of Tom Herman when Bru McCoy went to Texas after being at USC? I applaud Bru and his courageousness to say, hey, this is not where my heart is, and I'm going to do something to change that.
Yeah.
Oops.
Now it feels like he's like, oh, yeah, I'm glad he's doing it. Wait, don't do that no more. Stop. Let's change that. I don't.
Well, that's the thing. And don't be the fan that was like, he's the worst player in the world because he left us, and now he's the best player in the world because he's coming back. Texas and USC are going to be if he comes to sign with USC, you're going to see, you could probably find message board quotes from the same kind of people from Texas and USC that were saying the exact opposite things depending on which direction he was going. But I will give, the McCoy clan seems to be a well-organized, it seems like they know what they're doing because it's sort of what was it? Was it the Indianapolis Colts that left in the middle of the night?
Yes.
Or was it the Cleveland Browns?
The Baltimore Colts.
Baltimore Colts left for Indianapolis in the middle of the night or something. Is that what it was? I don't know. One of the NFL teams where they just left, and it's you wake up and they're gone.
Yeah, Cleveland going to Baltimore was it was
that
known.
Was yeah.
So it was the Baltimore Colts.
When Baltimore lost their team, yeah, and it was sort of this thing. That's kind of the way he left USC. Now USC was in turmoil, like I said, so it was a little easier. For Texas, what we understand, I think there was someone. There were a coach's wedding, or everyone was on vacation. People were gone, and then Bru's gone. So it seems like he's made up his, if you're gone at that point, there was a lot of thought that went into this. So, but the original question, I think it was from Cody, where, I think he put a lot of thought into this already, the fact that he's there where he is now, and it caught the Texas coaches by surprise. So, really interesting.
So YouTube reminded me of this, and I should have known because I was there. Sam Ehlinger was actually at the Adidas quarterback camp in Santa Monica this weekend. So he's already in California.
Okay.
Which is randomly convenient.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So that
I would think flying your players to someplace for any reason would probably not be. It's not for a game.
Go for the quarterback camp apparently because they've done that. There's different things where you're an ambassador and it's okay.
Yeah.
That's why NCAA rules are so dumb.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you can do this, but you can't do that. You can have the bagel, but not with the cream cheese on it.
Yeah. Like Trevor Lawrence, I think, was out because him and like DJ, they were like, former Clemson, future Clemson quarterbacks were hanging out and stuff. But we've seen like Sam Darnold at those things. We've seen a lot of people
Lane
like
Kiffin
that.
was there too.
Lane. I was at the gym the other day, and this guy had a Camp Kiffin shirt on. If you guys remember that, so Lane Kiffin would have like the camps around USC for the high school camps that was like Camp Kiffin, and it was. I'm like, man, that was a while ago. I haven't seen one of those. So it's
TBT.
Yeah.
We also had a tweet to us.
Oh, we got tweets.
Yeah, we do. Thank you to everyone who's tweeting at us. It's kind of jumping the horse a little bit, jumping the cart, I guess. He says, Alan says, what are the chances that Bru is eligible for this upcoming season if he comes back to USC?
I just don't see how that would be possible.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't really see how it would make sense that he would be eligible at Texas. I mean, you would basically have to have a hardship waiver. And there was the whole thing about, has he filed the waiver? Like, there was just a constant, like, I don't think this has actually happened. So I don't think if you come back to USC, there's going to be a waiver that says, well, this is the school I originally was at. Does that count?
Right. That would be the only thing, is because he was already enrolled at USC. Like, hey, I was already enrolled there. I just I took a semester abroad in Austin and then came back. It does seem very unlikely. I think what Greg was posting, it seems like the family kind of knows, yeah, we're probably not going to be able to be eligible this year. And he did wait on filing that waiver. From what we were told, it sounded like you're waiting on some of the other big ones. Because the waivers are strange. Like if you were saying things like, oh, I need to be, my grandmother's sick, like that wasn't getting passed. But if it was like, oh, someone on my team, whatever. I mean, there was all these weird reasons, and like good reasons seemed to not get, allowed, and then bad reasons you're like, okay, you can play right away. So it seemed like they were kind of waiting on some of the other big ones to see what they were doing. But maybe this was part of it too. But it doesn't seem very likely that he would be eligible to play this fall. But that's NCAA, so
yeah.
Who the heck, who knows?
You never know. We have one more tweet about Bru. It's Ladera Dude Steve. He says, regardless of which school Bru sticks with, do you think he'll live up to the hype, like Heisman contender at some point?
I mean, unless if he plays both ways and he gets a bunch of sacks as well as playing receiver like he's capable, then yeah. But that's the only way. He's a receiver and he's a defensive player. Those two positions do not win Heismans.
No.
You're a quarterback or you're a running back. That's
but he's
it.
really good. Like he
is really.
I think he's still going to be good.
All-American candidate. Yes,
Yeah.
I think that is his potential. His potential is to be an All-American candidate and to be a first-round draft pick. Those are all legit. And I think wherever he's at, I think he will be really good. I think he has an opportunity to play right away if he comes back to USC, especially with the receivers that are gone. I think he would be thrown into that offense. And I think he's a guy that you can stick in there. With JT Daniels, I think the connection is there. I think that there's a lot of upside there for USC if he comes back. I mean, 5-star players don't grow on trees except down in Orange County, and you just got to pluck that tree and bring it back up to LA, I guess. I've heard that from one of the sources I talked to was that the family's kind of like, all right, you need to make a decision and stick with it, and kind of has told him because they understand that this looks terrible from
optics wise, it's not good.
Yeah, it looks terrible. It looks like the kid's just bouncing back and forth, but he's a great kid. We've always had really great interactions with him. That was one Keely and I talked about and we joked about when he left to go to Texas. Like, well, that sucks for us because he's such a good interview.
Yeah. And
he's fun to talk to and he's really, really nice. So
that's just what was kind of surprising to me is like out of all the recruits I've talked to, Bru was the one I could talk to for like a long time and just have an intelligent conversation, really mature. And then he's the one recruit who's doing this like flip-flopping back and forth, and it just doesn't fit with the personality if you actually get to know him. So that's the thing that was a little confusing because like I'm seeing in the comments right now, some people are like, maybe he needs to go to a JC, mature a little bit, and like sit out. And it's like when you talk to Bru, you don't really get that vibe from him, as you would with some other recruits where you're like, okay, this kid needs to mature a little bit.
Yeah.
So
it's very strange. We got some comments on Periscope I want to read real quick because this is from Kamak Consulting. First of all, he said Bruce early on, so he likes Bruce when we talked about Bruce Feldman and stuff.
Okay.
He said, who would want to go from Southern California to Austin, Texas? Thank God this kid came to his senses. Austin is an amazing city. It's awesome. Like, I wouldn't live near a coast. If I didn't live near a coast, like I would probably pick Austin.
Really, the humidity though is a little.
Yeah, that's true.
Get used to it.
Okay. He said he didn't even sign the papers with Texas, though. He said, and then he's a little critical of us. This podcast or whatever would be better served to talk less and let your audience get involved. Like, we have to talk the whole time. That's kind of what we do.
Well, if our audience wants to get involved, there is a phone number on the bottom.
There's a phone call.
It's true.
Call
Shoot, we have 2 calls. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. He says, nobody wants to listen to you all rant, and I'm a USC fan and alum, and I can't listen to you all. Well, thanks for being here. But that's basically
Thanks for joining us.
The whole point of the show is we talk and rant about stuff, but we want it to be very interactive. It normally is. We bring up questions from 5 different ways you can ask us questions, and we try to answer them all. So
someone's been waiting for 24 minutes to online.
Oh.
Shall we go to a
yes,
live caller?
let's go to a live caller.
Hey, if Chris isn't out of play, maybe they could be screened. Let's go to our live caller. I believe it's Mark. Hello, Mark. I'm sorry I kept you on the line so long.
Not a problem. I've been listening to the show.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Well, my question is, it seems like we need an outside linebacker more than we need a wide receiver. Even next year, if we only lose Pittman, we're still going to have plenty of great wide receivers. Do you see Bru playing offensive outside linebacker?
I think ideally, whatever school he goes to, they use him at both. You play wide receiver, but then you're also in for pass rush as a pass rush specialist, because I think he's great at getting to the quarterback. I think he is capable of doing that, and it's just how quickly someone picks up the playbook on one side before you can start throwing them stuff on the other side. So I think that USC, they're so limited right now in scholarship wide receivers. They're going to get a bunch in the fall or some in the fall, but right now you had so few guys during the spring. I think you got to start him there. And outside linebacker, that position is kind of shifting because you don't have Porter Gustin, you don't have Uchenna Nwosu anymore, so they're kind of going to more of a true 4-down lineman instead of having the 2 outside linebackers stand up. So I think that he fits better with what they were doing instead of what they're trying to do now. Now, if they got him, would they change things back a little bit?
Could, yeah.
I think it would be more that he would just be a pass rush specialist, like Hunter Echols or Abdul Malik McClain was late in the year. Those guys are just getting in there, use your speed, come off the edge, use your spin move, do different things. I think it would be more of that rather than, starting him at outside linebacker and then seeing where he can progress from there.
Yep.
Yeah, I would agree with you. He's a special talent. You'll talk to some people that said he's going to be a better defensive player than offensive player. Just depends, but
just like Juju Smith-Schuster,
right? I still
and
think.
Marquise Lee,
but
who are both thought to be better safeties than wide receivers, and they're both in the NFL.
Yeah, as wide receivers.
Alrighty, thank you, Mark, for the call. We have another caller. I think it's Bob. His message scares me. Hello, Bob. Are you on the line?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. What's your question for the team?
Okay, great. I've just become a Tunnel Vision fan. I was on once before, and I thank you for that. And I'm also a USC fan. I know the modern day people because I've been following them for 5 years.
Wow.
And with Bru McCoy, he and JT, Armstead Brown, after every game over the last couple of years, they would take the time to talk to me. So I got to know Bru. And the last time I saw Bru is when they won the state championships. And people ask me, says, your son's now moved on to college. My son's gone on. Why are you still following modern day? Well, Coach Rawlings is a good person. The folly, he and I have become really good friends. But with Bru McCoy shifting from USC to Texas, I was devastated because he was so adamant about going to USC. And with his intellectual, he's so smart. That guy, just like JT. And so my question is, and I heard some of the answers to some of my other questions, that he won't be able to play this year because you can't keep jumping around and so forth. But my question is that what was happening? I know about USC. It's in turmoil. It's been turmoil for 10 years. I know we've been talking about this coach, that coach. I haven't really seen a good program for a long, long, long time. But now we got it together. USC is going to go all the way next year. I know they are. And with Bru McCoy, though, yeah, I know. I'm predicting that because I know JT, and I know JT is going to be the starting quarterback. It's no rocket science. They're saying the other quarterback, he can run better than JT. I saw JT pole vault in his last year over players. He is open field running. That guy can run.
Pole vaulting is illegal on the gridiron, though. You can't do that, just so you know.
Yes, it is.
That would be a foreign object. There would lots of problems.
Right. The coach is upset, but I know that he can run. I know he can get out of the pocket and scramble and throw passes on the fly. It's like his counterpart, Bruce Young, coming into the picture. But what makes me so excited about all these football players is that they're people. They talk to you. So many fans go to games, and it's like they don't talk to you. You know, they got better things. But these guys would. And so with Bru McCoy, my question is, what drove him? I'm trying to understand. From Texas, I try to follow their program. They don't have tunnel vision in Texas. It's hard to find what's going on with Texas. I mean, I'm not against Texas, the Longhorns. They're great. But it's a boring place. I never played for the University of Texas. I like USC or UCLA. I got stuck playing for Long Beach State when they had a football program.
Oh, okay.
But, yeah, so I know.
So what was the initial?
I know all my life.
Well,
my initial question is, why did Bru McCoy? Why is he leaving Texas? Because they ignoring him, or what? I don't know what's been going on with him in Texas.
All right, thanks. Yeah, no, I think we kind of addressed that a little bit. I mean, homesickness is part of it. I don't think we know everything yet. I think the family's been keeping things pretty close to the vest. I think a guy like Greg Biggins knows more than what he's saying right now, and we'll probably learn more about really what was behind that decision. It seemed like the turmoil at USC was certainly a big part of the reason he was leaving USC. Didn't seem like you had that kind of turmoil there. Texas is actually one of the teams that some people are projecting to be a playoff team this year. So it seems to be going in the right direction with Tom Herman. He's a great coach, very smart guy. So it's one of those things where, did you make a long-term decision for short-term reasons and then kind of regret it? I think there's some element of that. But to be honest, I don't think we know. At least we don't know. Greg Biggins probably knows.
So I've been told by a source that that he has a great connection with Drew Maringer, the passing game coordinator, their wide receivers coach, but the connection isn't quite the same with some of the other coaches on the staff. And he's looking for that family environment. That was one of the things that they loved about USC was the family environment. Not only his friends being there and having that kind of family, but also what Clay Helton has built as his mantra, faith, family, football. And I don't know if he feels he's got the same, if there's that same connection that he has with his receivers coach with the rest of the coaching staff there. So that's what one person told me. How valid that is kind of, it's hard to say. But, I think there's a combination of things. Whenever you go somewhere and you make a decision, you leave, and you go, leave and go and leave and go. I think there's more than one thing. It's just setting things apart. I think there's a combination of factors that are playing into this.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Bob, for the call. We appreciate it, and we appreciate you watching.
Yeah, thanks for calling in. We asked for tweets. We got tweets. We asked for calls.
Yes, we actually have one more caller.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Cody, I believe, will be on the line. Cody, hello.
Hi, guys. How we doing?
Good.
Good, Cody. How are you?
Good, man. Good. I'm a big SC fan. Frustrated, obviously. It's just I can kind of relate. I just left a job. And I work at a new job, and I'm kind of iffy about it. But I don't think I could just leave right away and go back. I kind of want to plan this out. I kind of want to see what this goes to. And why wouldn't Bru McCoy maybe just stay a year at Texas to kind of get a feel for it? He's only there a couple weeks. And I know you just can't get to know somebody in a couple weeks. So you got to at least give it a year so you can see how you vibe with them and everything. And I just think it's genuinely confusing. But yeah. I'm happy he's coming back, hopefully.
Yeah, I think that's partly the difference between an adult versus an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
18-year-olds or teenagers in general are apt to make rash decisions. The brain is not fully developed. You make a decision really quickly, and you may change your mind pretty quickly too. So, yeah, I think it's just part of human nature that 18-year-olds don't maybe have the same foresight that a 35-year-old or a 50-year-old or 80-year-old, that has more worldly experiences and says, this might look like it's greener pastures, but, something's not always greener pastures.
Yeah.
And maybe I should, kind of get a better feel and do a little bit more research on different things or, kind of get trying to find all the variables before I make a full decision. I think that sometimes that happens.
Cody, yeah, and I think it's a good point. Someone's brought this up to me too. You stay. I mean, you were at USC for a couple of weeks, and you've been around it a lot. You never got to go through an official practice, and like you said, he was there during a time when there was a lot of turmoil going on. He got to see spring football at Texas, but football, like we all went to the game last year, and it's an amazing environment. If you go to in the fall and in Austin and at the stadium, and he didn't get to experience any of that. Like he might have experienced that and be like, "This is amazing. Yeah, I definitely want to stay." So I think there's a really good point there. Probably made too hasty of a decision to leave, And, maybe it's one of those things where you don't want to throw good money after bad. You're like, this really was the wrong sort of thing. It's a little different than a job. If you leave your job, it's really hard to kind of come back unless you're like the best employee in the world. And they were like, yeah, we would take you back, no problem. In this case, it's like, yeah, you don't have 5-star recruits growing on trees. USC would take them back right away. But I think Shotgun's right. It's one of those things where, you're 18 years old. Maybe you made a decision it's a long-term decision when you're going to college, playing college football and stuff. Maybe some of it was that just that week or two you were there, I was like, man, this just seems so strange. And that was going to be temporary. Like they were going to get a strength coach in. You were going to get an offensive coordinator in. Maybe you made too rash of a decision then and kind of started him down, this path. But we'll see. Yeah.
I mean, I chose this college based on pictures on the website. I never went to visit. I also did that for grad school and came to USC, but, never visited either one, just showed up. I feel like, that's fine.
I wouldn't say you're like the typical.
That's also a good point. That's also a good point. But is Bru McCoy typical?
No, he's not.
Exactly.
Thanks. What was it, Corey? Was it Corey? Yeah.
Cody.
Cody, sorry.
And good luck with your job.
Yeah,
Hopefully
Cody. Hopefully,
Cody.
Stick it out. You're gonna.
Stick it out. Since we took Cody's call, we have 2 more callers.
Holy crap.
I know. I don't know if we want to go to some Facebook, YouTube questions.
Do a Facebook
minute.
or something first. Just a little. I'm going to give you a little behind baseball real quick. So the service we do to get callers, like it basically for everyone that's on hold, it costs like a little bit of money and stuff. And I forgot to oh crap, I think we're almost out of money. So while we were doing this, I had to add some more funds because we had all these people on hold. So we almost got cut off from calls, but we're good. So
a question related to an extent to Bru McCoy. Is Velus Jones, this has been asked a couple times, still in the transfer porthole, as
Gerard says?
Yes, he is still in the transfer portal. He's taken a couple official visits, but nothing has been decided yet. I think USC is still trying to get him back, but that would be a good addition to their receiving core to get him back, but it doesn't seem like that is likely. It seems more likely that he will go somewhere else.
Yeah, but the good thing on USC side is it's hard to find an open spot, so that could work where there's just not a lot out there. It's like you break up with your girlfriend and you're like, oh, you're going to the bars and you're like, yep, no one's interested in me. I'm like, I wish I was back with my girlfriend. Like it could be a situation like that.
That's an oddly specific example, Ryan.
Well, I've been married for 8 years, but that's like, that back in the day, people would get out of relationships just because they think there's something better. And right now, the dating pool, you could say, outside of whatever program you came from, isn't very deep. Like it's very difficult. So unless you're the biggest catch, you're a Justin Fields or something, it's going to be hard to find a partner because there's just not that many open spots at the bars right now.
And we had a question similar
to
that.
Does that count as a food analogy? Or
no.
Is that...
No.
Bar analogy does not count as food.
Okay.
But Jarrett Perez asked, what transferred player will USC miss the most? So we'll just say anyone who's in the transfer portal, since not everyone has left, but of the guys that are in the transfer portal, who do you think USC is going to miss the most?
Probably Bubba Bolden, would you say? Or just because that's a spot where USC could really use, defensive back, or a Keely Ross. Keely Ross was more of his choice, I guess, so maybe go with Ross.
Well, still in the transfer portal, but having him as the potential, a veteran player there, I think that'd be great for that safety group because they have talented players, but not really anyone with experience. So I think Keely Ross would be probably my pick. I would say Levi. I really like Levi Jones and what he was capable of doing. But there's so much talent at the inside linebacker spot right now that it's hard to say that they really need him back.
But Levi Jones was just always, I don't know, just always liked this game. He just never worked out. It was like
What about a Velus or a Trayvon Sidney? You know?
I think those guys could be really good in this offense, especially Trayvon Sidney.
I would go with Sidney over Velus.
That was a couple of people's picks on YouTube. Because of, you spread it out and get guys in space type of thing. And I think Trayvon Sidney would be great at that. But I think Velus Jones with his speed is a different option too, because you need someone in this offense to take the top off the defense, to keep them from bunching up to defend all your short passes. So you got to have some speed as well. So I think that's a valuable asset. But I'm going to go back to Keely Ross.
Yeah, you got to run the grass, and Velus can run to the faraway grass faster than most people, so that's good.
Very true. We have a Facebook question from Raphael. He says, if Bru ends up back at USC, what effect does it have on teams from outside the state coming into California to recruit?
Raphael. Well, that's something when we had Gavin Morrison here, he sort of hinted at stuff like this happening, like, hey, you're a top recruit and you leave the state. The transfer portal's always there, so it seems like something that he seemed pretty confident, you might think it's cool to go out of state because we're a little bit down right now, but you're going to want to come back. Like that's the kind of, did you get that feeling from him?
Yeah.
Like it sort of felt like that. So
yeah, he definitely hinted at the fact that if you go outside of California, it's not going to be like what you're used to playing in high school with all these skilled players. It's going to be different, and it's going to be much more competitive. So
him coming back could potentially be a good thing to try to keep other kids home. Like, hey, Bru left, and he was back within a few months. You know, like I don't know, maybe that's a positive thing.
The thing when you go across the country, or you go to you go to the Midwest, you leave your base area, you have to realize that the USC coaches have connections with the modern day coaches, the St. John Bosco coaches. Well, if you're coming from New Jersey, you don't really have to keep that connection with your coach going.
Right.
So if you're not happy, if a modern day player is not happy, they might be like, you know what, let's see if we can get him in on special teams or something. Let's try to make him a little bit happier. They're going to be like, if you're not happy and you're not doing the stuff that you need to be doing to earn your playing time, it's harder to actually, to do that. If you're not taking care of stuff in the classroom, you're going to fall to the wayside much quicker at a school if you're far away, because one, you don't have that network at home, you don't have the connections. Some guys need to get away from home. They get away from the situation they're currently in and go somewhere else and get a new start kind of. But a lot of other people, it helps to have mom and dad, go home and get home cooked meal or something. It helps to have, hey, my buddy's, he's back from college as well this week. It's his spring break, so we're going to hang out. And I haven't seen him in a long time. That makes me feel good.
Yeah.
That boosts my spirits, even though I'm not playing right now as a freshman. Those type things play into things. And, people 18-year-olds don't really look at that when you're going, they got great uniforms at this place, or they got all these amenities that this other school doesn't have, or there's something shiny. It's basically, ooh, look, something shiny to some of them, and you don't always put the full thought into your decision, and plus with how recruiting is and how some of those decisions flip flop in the midst of a recruiting announcement show or the 10 minutes before it or whatever, then, it can happen like that. So I think that I don't know how much effect it will have on the other kids, but maybe USC, like you said, will use that as a recruiting advantage,
right.
as a pitch. Be like, hey, this guy just left. Are you really going to go to Alabama? Are you really going to go to this school? You'll probably, you'll want to come back too.
Yeah.
We'd rather get you now, though, than before you come back.
Thanks, Raphael.
Yes.
Is that the cool name? Raphael's a cool name.
Raphael is a cool name.
Do you think it's a cool name?
Any name that is a Ninja Turtle is a cool name.
Oh, I guess so, yeah.
Very true. So shall we go to our live callers?
Sure.
We have a call from Brandon, whose name I recognize on Facebook. Hello, Brandon.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good. What's your question for the team?
So how do you think this is going to affect the college football premise now that he's bouncing back and forth? Is it going to be more common now at this point, or do you think it's just this one-time situation?
That's a really good point. I think you see with Chris Steele something, similar, where he was committed to USC, didn't sign with USC, but went to Florida and is already transferred out. I think we're only going to see more and more of it. And to Shotgun's point earlier, there might need to be some tweaking. I think it's good for players to have mobility. There's so many rules that are anti-player. You'd like to see more rules for them, but there's sometimes you make laws that have unintended consequences. You make a law to encourage people to. I think the thing was there was a cobra problem in India, and the British passed a law that said, we'll put a bounty on all cobras if you bring us a dead cobra. Well, what did the Indian people do? They started breeding the cobras so they could kill. So you made a law to try to curb the cobra population, and it made it worse by people breeding cobras, because that's the unintended consequences. And one of the unintended consequences could be a lot of this stuff happening that won't end up being great things for the player. So I think you might need some sort of tweaks to this rule. But I think the mobility thing is here. And if you're going to allow people to grant waivers for kind of crazy reasons, you're only going to see more of it. But I don't see this changing. The Bru McCoy thing is weird. Maybe we don't see that exactly next year, but it sort of opens the door for, in Bru McCoy's world, he ends up at his, the local school that he wanted to go to begin with. If he ends up there, it's sort of what happened? He went spring football someplace else and he ended up at USC. It's not like anything horrible happened to the kid. So I don't see a reason that people would look at this and go, wow, that's a cautionary tale. If you transfer, you'll either end up at Texas or USC. It's it's good no matter what happens, if that makes sense.
That's one of my favorite analogies that you've ever brought up. The snakes,
the cobras. Well, that's not like really an analogy like that. Well, I guess it's an analogy to
example,
that, but yeah, it's an example of unintended. Like you see this in politics all the time. You're like, we're going to do this to make this happen, whatever, solve this problem, but it doesn't always. Sometimes your heart and your intentions are in the right place, but you make some law or you make some rule that does the complete opposite. That's not what you wanted, but you didn't think it all the way through.
So then if I were to knight you, Ryan, of NCAA caliber, how do you adjust this to make it better?
So I think you have to do something with the initial counters. I don't think they'll get rid of it, but I do think you need to address the transfer part. So if someone leaves, you can get someone back. So basically, a player goes to a school, he counts initially. If he leaves, you lose that spot, and you have to find a new spot for him. But you don't get it back. It's like gone. Like you've gone somewhere. That initial counter is just gone forever, and you could leave. So I think if you transfer out, there's some formula where you get, maybe every 2 transfers you lose, you can bring one in. You need to give these kids an opportunity to land someplace. Right now, I think there's going to be a lot of guys in the portal that are just scrambling at the end, and it's getting to this time. Like June, I think will probably be towards the end of what we see, and I think like a guy like an Keely Ross hasn't decided yet. I think he was waiting for like a May-June timeframe to kind of figure out what was going on. Does he end up finding a spot? It's hard to say. So I feel like some of the problems that are with the transfer portal are going to be, you're going to see them and they're going to be talked about a lot more over the next like 5-6 weeks. I think everyone's going to be talking about like, oh, look, this kid can't find a place. This kid can't find a place. Then the NCAA is going to need to do something. It's sort of seeing it now, but I don't think we're going to see the full effect of how bad this can be until like probably the end of June.
In that sense, do you think we could see a Keely Ross or a Trayvon Sidney, if they don't really necessarily find a home, could they, if they're accepted back from the coaching staff, USC coaching staff, could you see them coming back to the team?
I think you can eventually see players do that. I don't think either one of these players, Trayvon Sidney's already committed to Illinois. Yeah. Keely Ross, it just from what we've heard, doesn't sound like
he was. Yeah.
That was in the works at all. So, but I think that yes, that is a possibility. I think it's going to eventually happen where you have some players that are looking for greener grass and decide it's not there, so I'm going to come back. I feel like it's going to kind of be like the NBA draft, where you can go in early and you can do the workouts. And then if you decide you want to come back, and I bring this up only because a lot of people, that was the big news today. So I think it's going to be similar to that, where guys are going to kind of test the waters a little bit, and then as long as they keep a good relationship with the staff, they're going to say, yeah, come on back. Because the same thing happens with the NBA draft, where a guy burns bridges, and he's like, I don't know if I'm ready for the NBA. And they're like, yeah, I don't think you're coming back here, though.
Yeah, and that's up to the school. So a guy like Clay Helton he's open about it. He was very nice to Bru McCoy, and that's probably going to come back and be a benefit, because if he gets Bru McCoy back, if he was a jerk or shut him out when he left, he probably wasn't going to come back. There are certain programs that are like, if you go in the transfer portal, I think Herm Edwards did this too. Like if you leave, if you go to the transfer portal, you're out. Like you're not coming back. So it's not always a safe. Like that's when these players are really going to be screwed. You leave a program that you think, and they're saying you're done. Like you're not committed to us. We're not going to hold a spot for you. We're going to go try to find your replacement. So there's certain, it's up to the school that the program can cut that player off. So you do that, and they can't find a spot to go. You can't even go back. So with some of the USC guys, they have that opportunity. Some of the other guys in the transfer portal don't.
Well, thank you, Brandon, for the call. We have one more call. Oh, we got another one. Too many calls.
That's
no,
okay.
It's good. Thank you.
No, it's a good thing.
Yes, but then we don't share the love between YouTube and Facebook.
Oh yeah. What's funny? It was like we get special guests, and you feel like, oh, that's going to be really popular. It's like, yeah, but it's usually better when it's just us. Like the people, like I don't know what it is. It's familiar.
Or also when there's semi-breaking news.
That news helps too. Yeah.
Very true. That also helps. We have another caller. They put their name as Bru McCoy, so I don't know if that's their real name. Hold on. It's trying to work right now. Hello, Bru. You are on the line. Okay, I guess Bru is not on the line.
Oh, sorry, Bru.
We have another caller, Kristen, who I'm going to put on the line. Hello, you are on Tunnel Vision.
Hey, Keely. This is Crispin Collins. This topic of today is really connected with me. I went to Marday, played football. That's how I fell in love with football in the 90s, watching McNair and Gruga and so forth. Then I went to SC and ran track. But of all things, I eventually ended up at Notre Dame where I met my wife. But and I know Bru, and my dad still coaches at Mater, so I have a lot of connection with him. And when he first left, it was really surprising, despite all the craziness, because Bru coming to Mater was kind of filled with some craziness at the time. Mater had not missed the playoffs in forever. I was part of the last teams that, with Barkley and so forth, that beat Servite every year. And then right before Bru came, Mater's football program was in complete disarray, and people were kind of surprised that Bru went to Mater despite that. But he just saw something in there. And I think part of him coming back to SC reminds me of that, of him saying, this is a place I love. I have so many connections with this and so forth. Despite what everyone says and despite all this disarray, I'm good enough, and I'm going to be part of something to make this thing great, just like he did back with Mater.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a really interesting analogy. I believe he was going to go to like Bosco or something, and
he basically wanted the challenge of going to Mater Dei.
Yeah,
they hadn't been winning. He said, we can do it with me, JT, and these guys. So that's where he went, and he took the challenge. And he likes a challenge. That's what we were told. And I think that was part of the reason why
he went
left
to Texas, right?
Yeah, when he left USC, because we heard, he saw that it was basically the same stuff as high school. The workouts were similar or less challenging than what he had in Mater Dei, and he's like, this is not the challenge that I was looking for. I mean, it's the greatest challenge when you're not getting the attention and coaching and strength and conditioning that you need to be getting. But he's like, no, I'm going to go to Texas. It's going to be a different challenge. This is out of my comfort zone. I'm going to try that. So that's kind of what made this interesting to me, because all those things made sense to me. With what his past history is. So going to Texas, but we just he's decided that that's not what he wants. So so it's a very interesting situation. Hopefully there's a little bit of a chapter in a book written on this at a later date. So it's one of those just really interesting recruitments. And there's so many of those stories out there, different things that happen, from the guy that committed to Cal that never had a scholarship to any school. That's probably my favorite recruiting story. But there's a lot of good recruiting stories out there, from what's the safety who committed to Alabama when his mom wanted him to go to LSU, and she was not happy about it during Landon
was that
Collins.
Auburn or something?
It was Landon Collins going to Alabama instead of LSU.
Oh, yeah, it was LSU. Okay, yeah.
And she was not happy about it. So, there's
like
some great
on
recruiting
TV,
stories. Yeah.
Or like, who was the kid that committed to USC on television, but then went to UCLA like the next day or whatever, or like what was signed with UCLA?
It was Torian White who who was committed to, I believe it was committed to UCLA, flipped his commitment in the morning to USC, but didn't sign the paperwork. We go to the announcement ceremony and everything.
He put the USC hat on, and like his family was like, "What?"
And so we go to the press conference. He's not listed on USC signees, and we comes out like 30 minutes later that, hey, he signed with UCLA. Like what? And that's I think that was a case where I wasn't following recruiting as closely or wasn't as tied in at the time, but I think that was a case that the parents were like, no, I know
they weren't going to let him.
This is what decision you want, but we're not signing the paperwork to go to that school. You're going to this one, and you get so many of those. We've heard plenty of stories. Gavin was telling plenty of stories about recruiting. Some great ones out there. So maybe this will get included in someone's book at some date.
Yeah.
You never
But thanks for the call, and interesting story. Played Mater Dei, went to USC, then Notre Dame, met his wife. So
an interesting addition
Very
to
cool.
the show. Thank you. So the caller that we had that dropped called back. I believe he was trying to say Bru McCoy, and that's not Bru McCoy. I got it.
That's probably, yeah.
So let's get him on the phone. If it will go. Hello, you're online with television.
Yeah, I definitely said Bru McCoy. I didn't say Bru at all.
So you are Bru McCoy? Thanks for calling in, Bru.
Check this out. I don't even really have a question. I just want to make a statement. With McCoy, of course he's accountable for his actions. He's 18. But we got to be honest as a Trojan family. We're over here whining and complaining so much that it's affecting, kids and their thoughts about the program. We are SC. We have to remember that. I mean, why are we even promoting other programs? They're not even on our level. Yes, we're on a downturn, but who's better? What's better than going to USC? I mean, look at the Pac-12 championship game. Well, who was it? Washington and Stanford. They couldn't even pack the house. Now we got to the point now where you got Trojan fans reading articles from Notre Dame fans talking about how bad our program is. Dude, we got to keep it balanced. I'm not saying you guys don't. You guys keep it on par. But I'm just saying, as far as Trojan fans, we're over here. We want the Titanic to see. Everything is so bad. And, of course, these young guys are hearing that. He probably went to Texas and realized, why am I even over there? I got the Coliseum. I'm in L.A. I'm in California. I could be a star here. Why? I mean, that's what probably happened. You know what I mean? Looking at Texas, like, why the hell am I over here? What? I got caught up in a Longhorn symbol with a T-shirt on TV. We are SC, man. We just got to, people, if they're not down with the program, get away, go to UCLA. There's room over there. You can go hang out in Westwood.
I got a lot of room.
This is SC. This is SC. You know what I mean? We are SC, and that's it. I'm out.
Great call. We didn't get his name, but cool.
Obviously, his name was Bru McCoy.
I guess it's Bru. Thanks,
Bru
Bru.
McCaw. His name was Bru McCaw.
Mr. McCaw. Okay. So fans short for fanatic. It's crazy. We see so much. We've covered this team when it's really good, when it's really bad. There's complaints. There was a lot of complaints during the Pete Carroll era, like going 11-1 and beating the crap out of Penn State in the Rose Bowl upset a lot of people. Like that wasn't good enough. Like it's all kind of relative. Now, when you're going 5-7, like historic bad as far as like over 100 years of football, and you're like one of the worst, like 5 or 6 years of that, like that's not a good thing. Obviously, and there's a lot of problems right now from the administration side. Just a lot of bad hires. And the players, it sucks because there's a lot of great players on the team. There's a lot of really good guys. I don't think they've had the best leadership above them from the administration side. Some of the coaching hires have been very questionable, and it puts the fans in this weird spot where they're almost rooting against the team because they want to see a change in coaches or whatever. So it's definitely you're not alone. There's a lot of fans that are just like, hey man, I love the team. We're going to be great. Blah blah. I mean, they'll say that, and there's other fans that are like, Clayton's the worst. No matter what happens, we're going to stink. Like you're going to see a lot of that, and when the program is in this weird spot where they've just been underachieving, it's kind of hard to avoid. But you're not alone. But there's a lot of fans like kind of on the other side too that are just upset.
So I'm going to jump in and break the Bru McCoy talk for a little bit because there's some breaking news. USC just picked up a commitment from Jack Eure, tight end, a Trojan legacy. He just committed to USC. Guys, what does USC get with Jack Eure?
Well, first off, you get the legacy because his father, as Ryan said, was the first overall pick in the 1968 draft. He was an offensive tackle, one of the great tackles at USC. By getting Jack Eure, you continue that, and that's always important. If you have a former player that's a Hall of Famer and he's a legitimate prospect, you have to get him on campus.
Yeah.
So USC does what they have to do in this one, getting Jack Eure. He's a tight end from Murrieta Valley. He played with Hank Bachmeyer, who's the quarterback going to Boise State. They also had another receiver there I can't think of off the top of my head. There's going to Marquise Spiker. Is going to Washington. So they had some weapons there. He was used in the middle of the field. Ryan, you've seen him more recently than I have. What did you think of him when you saw him at which camp? I can't remember which camp.
It was the what was it? The lineman. What was that? I forget which one that was.
It was the lineman challenge.
The super lineman. Yeah. That was the one, right? I'm trying to think.
Yeah, that's where you talked to him.
Yeah, okay. I was like, this is like weird, like going all this stuff. Yeah, so looks like he could be a lot of people think he'll grow into an offensive tackle. And I think you see some of the guys that are 250, 260 pounds. I think the top 5 guys, or of the top 5 guys in the NFL draft that were linemen, they were like that size, more projects coming out of high school. They weren't 320 pounds coming out, but seemed like a really cool kid. You could see the athleticism and stuff there. No, it wasn't at the lineman camp. He was at.
Does it matter?
Was it? I forget which one. I'm trying to.
Sorry, I shouldn't have asked you that. That's my fault.
No. I was like, where was it? It was. We cover a bunch of different recruiting things. Was that? It was one. I don't know. Maybe it was at the.
Right. It doesn't matter.
Now I'm trying to remember where it was.
You could figure it out after the show.
I'll figure it out.
Talk about
the
what
show.
you saw.
Yeah, but definitely. I mean, I think you see the athleticism there. I think, like Shotgun said, being a legacy guy, and his dad, being such a prolific offensive lineman. You look at I think you have like Anthony Munoz is, he's signed this helmet right here. You want to get kind of guys like that in there. I think he could be a really good tight end, but you feel like he's going to grow into more of an offensive tackle. I don't know if you guys feel that way, but we got to see him as a tight end. So, yeah, it wasn't the lineman camp because he was.
I have not seen him block. I only saw him at the opening as a tight end. And I actually saw him last year at USC's Rising Stars camp. I thought he looked good as a tight end. Now, I didn't think he looked as good as Ethan Ray, who I thought was even better than Jude Wolfe last year when I saw them. They were all three together at camp. Now, he's a year behind those guys.
Right.
But seeing Jude Wolfe and the gigantic strides he took in a year, I think he surpassed both those guys. He's the top on that list of three right there, the trio. But I think Eure can take another big jump like that. So I think he can stay at tight end. I don't think he necessarily has to move to the tackle position. I haven't seen him block to be able to make that decision.
Yeah.
So that's why it's hard for me to say.
We haven't seen that in the thing, but as far as like catching passes and stuff, you see the athleticism there when he was running routes and. But I don't know. Just my gut says he's probably going to grow into that, be a great offensive tackle. But we'll see.
So I actually saw him block a little bit at the Adidas camp in Mission Viejo, and he definitely needs some work. He's definitely a tight end rather than born lineman in the sense that he's a little lankier, a little taller. So there's a lot of limbs going on where he's not as sure of his body, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's
so I think right now he's definitely tight end first. But as far as the tight end group, how does he fit with what USC has right now with the tight end classes?
I mean, the class is kind of in flux, right? I mean, the tight end group is kind of in flux. Like, how well they're going to be used. Is like a Josh Follow going to just be like this H-back guy with Ethan Ray and Jude Wolfe coming in? What roles are they going to play? I'm curious to see how that kind of develops. Does a Daniel Amaterbebe ever get back into the mix? You got Eric Kromenhoek in there, but is it going to be more of a shift to kind of an athletic tight end thing, which I think he can, fit that role. We'll see. But it might be one of those things where he gets in there and they're like, he gets to college and he puts on 20 pounds like right away, and they're like, oh, you're going to be a tackle. We haven't seen that for a while, right? Like, when's the last time USC brought in a tight end that became?
Tyron Smith is the last one that immediately pops to mind.
But he was coming. I think he was recruited as a tackle.
Oh, he played some tight end though.
Yeah, I think he played some. Yeah,
I'm not sure.
That's
a Gerard Martinez question.
It's been a while, I think, for something like that. But yeah, I think it's good. I think there's some versatility there. It's going to depend on the coaches and his development. Where he sort of ends up.
Yeah, and Greg Biggins thinks he can move to left tackle. I'm looking at our story that we already have up, the Greg Biggins, and that we have both the commitment story and a future impact story. So looking at his future impact, they see him as a tackle. He thinks he's a good blocker and has the right nastiness and mindset. That's what he has written. So I think he's a guy that you put at the tight end position, you see how things go, and then if you decide to move him a little bit later, because he's going to bulk up when he gets to college, and that's the thing. You see where the body kind of takes him. I think that's the biggest thing there.
I'm trying to find it. I put this video up of him somewhat recently, but it was.
Shall we go back to our questions?
Yeah, let's go back to the questions. Sorry, I'm just curious. I'm like, where did I put this?
Ryan's searching for that.
Oh my gosh.
It's bugging me.
Vince wants to know about the transfer portal. He says, are there any limits that a player has going into the transfer portal? How many times can they go into the transfer portal, et cetera?
So the basic rules in college are you have 5 years to play 4. So you have 5 seasons to complete 4 athletic, 4 years of athletics. So that's why you can redshirt. That's why you can have a medical redshirt. But that's the basic gist. Now, if you transfer, the rules are you have to sit out a year.
Yeah.
If you transfer between Division I schools, if you transfer to FCS, you play that year. You can transfer back to it. That's why you see some guys are bounce backs, what they call. So you can go from USC to a junior college or to an FCS school, and you play a year there, and you bounce back to another Division I school, and maybe you bounce back to UCLA or Arizona or some other school. So that's the basic gist of it. You can transfer as many times as you want, but you have 5 years to complete your 4 years of athletics. And if you had to sit out a year because of transferring, then that still counts as one of those 5 years. So that's the only thing. Is that you can transfer a couple times, but if you do, you're going to lose those years.
You're losing time. Yeah. And okay, I saw him at the Under Armour LA thing. So that's what it was. It was. I just took a while. It took me a while to put the video up. So that was a while. That was like a couple of months ago.
Oh, the Adidas. No,
it was the Under Armour
Armour
one. Yes.
My bad.
Okay, I was getting confused with the one I went to more recently. Sorry.
Well, now we have it 20 minutes later.
Yeah.
Team
it's just bugging my brain. I'm sorry.
The Great, he says, back to last week with the scheduling FCS schools, is that really a problem since the Pac-12 likes to have USC playing Stanford and Utah the first month of the season?
Yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah, I think it's the problem. So what you could do, the Pac-12, I bring this up on our Pac-12 podcast, and the people from the North don't really like it, but if you wanted to fix that, you could change the divisions. So the South would include Stanford and Cal, USC, UCLA, and Arizona State. If you look at Utah and Colorado, they're actually further north than Stanford and Cal are, like on the map. But they were brought into the South. If you put Stanford and Cal in the same division, then you wouldn't have to have all the California schools play each other. They already would, and then they wouldn't be restricted to only playing Stanford and USC at game 2 or whatever, which kind of stinks. Now, people from Washington get mad. It's basically access to California, so they want to be able to come down to Southern California and Northern California as much as possible. If you did that, Washington would get like one less game in California over 6 years, and for them, there was like an outrage from talking to that. So that's one way you could fix it. Not necessarily playing FCS schools, but having Stanford and USC and Cal and UCLA in the same division, and then when they all play each other every year for all those rivalries, it wouldn't matter because they're in the same division.
Also, just don't be cheap. You can pay schools to come play you.
Yeah.
You have to pay $1 million or something to go get Wofford to come play you, but you can get them. I mean, Wofford maybe FCS actually.
I think Wofford's not a good example. Yeah.
To go get Jacksonville State or whatever low level schools that they're in Division I, that are FBS that's the SEC schools are going to go get the Rutgers of the world. You can go get those schools if you pay the money.
Yeah.
True. Very true.
You can go get Kent State to come play if you give them a $1.5 million.
Yeah.
Now, are they going to come all the way across the country if you're not giving them the money to pony up? No. But if you're going to be cheap, then that's why you go play FCS schools.
Don't be cheap.
Because there's not a ton of FCS schools around here anyways. So it's not like you're going, well, there's 30 schools that are in 4-hour drives, so now we just have so much more options to do. No. You got a few. You got UC Davis, Cal Poly, San Diego are the three that come to mind off the top of my head. I mean, I don't think there's a ton more in California that have football.
True. It is 7:12.
Yeah, so we should probably start wrapping.
So we're going to get into rapid fire pretty quick. But Shotgun, before we do, putting you on the spot, quick baseball minute.
Oh, crap, yeah.
Dan Hubbs is not retained. Give us your quick baseball analysis.
Yeah, so USC finished the season 25-29-1 this season, another sub-500 year. They've only had, I believe it's 2 winning seasons since they basically pushed Mike Gillespie out and he retired. So Mike Gillespie, who had won a national championship for USC, the last time USC had been in the regionals was 2005 until 2015 when Dan Hubbs led the team there. And unfortunately for Dan Hubbs, I really like Dan Hubbs. He was always great with the media and stuff. But USC was just never able to capitalize on that season. They had a ton of talent on that 2015 team. They were really good. They lost the eventual national champions Virginia in the Lake Elsinore Regional. A wild day where they won a game and they're down there the final out. They scored 3 runs to beat San Diego State, eliminated them. They were up on Virginia. The game goes to 11 innings. They end up losing to finish their season. But the next season, they didn't capitalize. And they had a ton of talent the next season. And, one thing led to another, an injury here and thing. It didn't work out for them. That season, they had 12 guys get drafted, which was tied for the most in the country. And they had at least one more senior that signed, maybe 2 more if I'm remembering correctly. But so they had a ton of talent on that team and just were not able to put it together. And then because they had so much talent and that talent left through the draft, which was expected, they were young the next season, so they were really bad. And then last year, things didn't come together. It was just a continually. They've got potential, but are they going to be consistent enough? And that was the thing that Dan told me going into the season. Is like, if we're consistent, we can win 35 games, 40 games. But they finished 25 and 29. Some of the guys that I wrote about today, some of the guys that they were expecting big years from, did not pitch well, and that was a big thing. And their offense, which had been really good in 2015, 2016, had been basically in the middle third of the nation. They were ranked between 101 and 200 in almost every offense category. There's 297 Division I baseball teams. So they were not great at anything.
Okay.
So that made it very difficult for them. And they're a team that they beat Arkansas, who national runner-up last year. They beat them this year. They took 2 or 3 this past weekend at Oregon State. Oregon State finished third in the Pac-12, was a top 15 team. So they had the opportunities. They beat UCLA, who's was the number 1 seed throughout. Is the number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Was basically number 1 for the second half of the season.
Yeah.
But
they go on the road and lose a series to Utah, who was terrible, right?
Yeah, and they had an opportunity going into that Utah series. They had come off. They had beat Arizona State twice, and Arizona State at that time had only had one loss coming into the series, and they just never were able to consistently put it together. They couldn't build on things, and that's why Dan Hubbs is not going to be. His contract's not going to be renewed. So his contract ends in June, at the end of June. So they'll be looking for a new coach. The press release said they'll have a national search. You expect that search to be very regional,
because a regional national search.
Well, because there's a ton of talented coaches in California. For one, I've been texting and talking with a lot of people today because of this news coming out. I've heard every name from Pat Casey at Oregon State, who led them to a national championship and then retired after last year. Someone said, hey, they got to throw money at Pat Casey and go get him. But that just doesn't seem like USC's MO. They have not, gone out and got that big name guy and spent a bunch of money. They did try to get
established, proven commodity.
Pat Hayden did try to get John Savage from UCLA after they had won a national championship, but that was 7 years ago.
Yeah.
So you haven't seen that just in USC's hiring practices since then. I've seen names as close to USC as some of the assistants that are on the staff now. I've seen names of former USC assistants and stuff. So there's a lot of names being thrown out there. I'm going to try to keep you guys abreast of it on the Peristyle as the search continues, I guess.
Real quick, is a coach and not a manager in college?
Head coach.
They don't call them managers.
No.
Is there a reason for that, or
probably because you coach more in college than you do in the pros?
Okay, and
then you expect the Yankees to be really good when they get to the bigs.
Okay, not renewing his contract seems like passive aggressive. Is that common in college baseball? They just fire the guy and move on.
Well, what I was told last year is that last year when they finished below 500, I kind of wondered will they make a move, and there were some other people asking me if that would happen. It was kind of up in the air because Lynn Swine's kind of a wild card. I've said that many times. And they said, we're going to let the contract play out, and we'll see how they do next year is basically what it was. So once this season progressed and, they finished below 500, I think they're like, okay, that's it. We're going to part ways now. The contract will end in June. So.
All right. And one last thing. Former USC player Aaron Boone, would he be in the mix?
Speaking of the Yankees, the current Yankees manager.
Oh, that's what he's doing now?
Are you serious?
I was like, Ryan.
So he wouldn't leave the Yankees for USC?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
You never know.
Never know.
You never know. We have a YouTube question from Mark. He says, besides Bru McCoy, are there any other players who may see time on both sides of the ball, i.e. Isaac Taylor Stewart?
Isaac Taylor Stewart's not seeing time on both sides of the ball.
I think
that was him, not me.
I think if you're in a good place and your program's just like a well-oiled machine, you could kind of. I thought they could have done that with Juju a little bit, and they didn't. I don't think they're really in a spot to experiment and do stuff like that. They got to just put their nose to the grindstone and just put people in the best spot and go with it. I don't think they can experiment like that.
I don't know. You don't have the Adoree Jackson athlete. There's no one on this team that we would compare to Adoree Jackson athleticism. The one guy that you look at and say, well, maybe he'll play on both sides, and not because it is Dominic Davis, and that's just because maybe we'll move him around.
Yeah.
And you see him at DB and you go, has he made enough progress, or do we move? Maybe there's a couple injuries on the running back. That's the only one I can think of all the time.
Yeah. I just lost the question I was about to ask.
Though Christian Rector would like it to be known that you can catch passes if you need a tight end.
Oh.
Just saying.
Also, Drake Jackson, that backflip, that is the type of Adoree comparison that you could
make. That's a jumbo athlete. That's true. That's some jumbo athleticism.
True. I just want to remind people, because we actually got a comment about it. June 1st, this Saturday, we're having a public meetup. Ryan, do you want to give more details about it?
Real quick, Saturday, June 1st, Common Space Brewery in Hawthorne, California from 3 to 6 p.m. It's kid-friendly. It's dog-friendly. It's free. You want to have some craft beer, eat food off of a truck, and, of course, talk some USC football with yours truly, Keely Eure, Dan Weber, Chris Trevino, who else? Gerard Martinez. And we got special guest, Jake Olson. You might remember him.
Fun.
Maybe his dog's going to show up. Quebec, they're very cool. Jake's awesome, so you can come talk with him. Arash Markazi, USC grad from the LA Times. Bruce Feldman, college football insider. All those guys are going to be there. We're going to have a recording little studio set up, and we'll have live questions from all of you. So, like I said, I think we have about 100 or so RSVPs. I think we have room for 150, so we got room for more. But, go to uscfootball.com. We have it up on the front page. Please RSVP and let us know if you'd like to come. But welcome to anyone. Should be a lot of fun. Just, an afternoon of having a good time and talking some USC football. There's some positive stuff been happening lately, so we can talk about some fun things instead of, doom and gloom all the time.
Very true. We have the Ryan Rants cam. We need the infomercial Ryan cam. You had your infomercial voice.
Was that good? Did it sound
good?
Okay.
Well done.
Thanks.
Shotgun, you are our rapid fire man.
All right, we got a lot of questions about recruiting today, so I'll answer some of these. I'll throw some out to you guys. Have we seen any indication that the staff understands the importance of real recruiting and not acting like the talent will just show up?
I think they've understood that. The problem is right now.
No. There were some coaches on staff that did not go. I think they've addressed that to an extent. I think they've also realized the difference in the early signing period.
That took a while. I think there's definitely guys on the staff that understood it, but the way the staff was assembled, there were some people that just weren't recruiting and stuff. But right now, USC's in a spot that they're going to try to recruit, but you're not going to get a lot of these big name guys unless you start to succeed on the field. And that's a product of where the program is now. But I think you have, like Shaka said, there's better recruiters on staff than there were before. Now, is there any T. Martins on the staff? No. But I think the average is still better because some of the guys that got rid of that weren't really as big recruiters.
Dallas Schwartz also asked, where did the recruitment of five-star Kendall Martin go in the toilet? Why wouldn't USC make a real run at him? So what we've heard is, when you hear that Kendall Milton's one of his primary recruiters is still John Baxter, who's a Fresno guy, which is why he was recruiting him, and he doesn't mention Mike Jinks, that's what you should look into.
Yeah.
He didn't mention it when I talked to him up at the Oakland Regional. He did not mention Mike Jinks, and I think that my personal opinion is that Mike Jinks, he's looking for smaller backs. When he first got to campus, he said, I'm not used to having these big of guys. I don't think that Kendall Milton fits into the air raid offense that he's used to running. So that's just not the guy he's looking for. And if a guy doesn't fit into what you're looking for, and he's a five-star guy that's being recruited by everybody, you're probably just going to pass on him because the effort that goes into recruiting a five-star guy that is a national guy getting recruited by everyone is just too much if it's a guy that you're not really sold on yourself.
Yeah.
It just seems like it would be a waste of time for you if you're not sold on the player yourself.
And it seems like Mike Jinks coming from Texas, he feels more comfortable there. But to me, you got a guy like that in your backyard, you just go all in on the five-star running back no matter what. So that would be but that's a coaching philosophy. Maybe not one that if I was a coach, I would be following.
USC is really recruiting. The next question was about the 2020 running backs, since they're not going to get Kendall Milton or they weren't in Sam Adams' final list. So Sam Adams, the Washington running back, just released his top six yesterday.
Top six, and USC wasn't.
Yeah, USC was not there. You're looking at it. There are recruiting some Texas running backs. There's I think 5 or 6 that they have offers out to in this group. There's some running backs from all over. One of the guys they're really hard after is Bijan Robinson from Tucson. So he's a guy that USC's after, that UCLA's after, that a number of programs are after. The Saddle Point Catholic guy, that's who they're really going after hard. So that's a guy they're looking at. That's probably USC's top. He's probably top on their board, I would guess. I haven't seen their board, but that would be my guess. But they have offers out to 15 running backs, I think. I think 5 of them are from Texas, so that tells you that they are going to look there. And because Mike Jinks has connections.
Right.
And people, I'm sure when he got the coaching job at USC, were like, I got a running back for you. I got a running back. All the head coaches that he knows from Texas football as well.
Yeah.
Also in recruiting, who are the top O-line prospects in 2020 recruiting that USC's after? So
it's kind of rough because last year was a way better offensive line class, and USC kind of struck out a bunch of dudes. This year just isn't that good of a class.
Yeah, and so I think locally the big thing for USC is the 3 M's. Miles Moreau, Drake Metcalf, and Jonah Monheim. You got to probably get 2 of those 3. You got to take care of your guys close to you. Yes. Obviously, there's some other guys that they're going after. They're looking for big offensive tackles. So none of those guys actually fit that bill. So they probably get 2 of those 3 and then get some big offensive tackles.
Metcalf could be, right? Do you think Metcalf could
be? He's small.
You don't think he could turn into that? Come on.
I think he's a center at the next level. He's 6'2",
He even thinks he's a center at the
Is he
next level.
6'2"? I thought he was taller than that.
No, he's only 6'2".
He was taller than Keely. When
Bru
we did the
6'2", Jonah Monheim is 6'5". But, they've looked at some guys like, there's some Arizona. Tosh Baker, 6'8", committed to Notre Dame. There was another Texas one that I'm not thinking of. Arizona tackle that I'm not thinking of was also 6'7". They're looking for those big roadblock tackles on the edge. So we'll see who they can get there. There's some offers out all over the country because they're looking for specifics in that category of recruiting. What's up with Chris Steele? We had a couple of different stories. Is Chris Steele to Oregon a done deal? Ryan, you want to update him on that one?
We talked about this on the Trojan Blast recruiting podcast a little bit. There's the door's open, I guess you could say. The door's cracked. Most likely, I would think, if I had to guess, bet on something, he ends up at Oregon. But I don't think it's completely over.
A question from Jasper Smith, which I don't think we'll have the answer for, but I think is an interesting question. How do the vets on the team feel about Bru McCoy? Would they even welcome him back? And I think that's an interesting thing because if you have a player that says, I don't want to be with you guys, and then suddenly comes back and says, you're going to have to regain the trust of especially those veteran players. Now, I think the fact that JT Daniels is in his quarter would help a lot.
Yeah.
Amon-Ra.
He's going to have a lot of guys that are on his side. Was Jude Wolf his roommate?
Yeah.
When he first got here and stuff.
So, that's the thing, too, is, I feel like there's also this, California high school vibe where it's kind of we're all good, I don't feel like there'd be that hard feelings, especially if he's coming back. I don't know.
And look at the makeup of this team. There's going to be, I think there's 35 or 36 freshmen, I don't think the freshmen are going to be begrudging him. There's only 8 seniors.
Yeah,
so
all 8 of those seniors are going to be mad.
Maybe all 8 seniors hate him. I don't think it probably doesn't matter as much.
Is it player development that's keeping the Cali kids from committing to SC? It is for a couple of them. That has been something that has been mentioned by some players. Can someone please tell me what TF is wrong with Amader Bebe? I'm assuming they meet Daniel. He is hurt, ? He is just trying to transfer, ? What is his injury, ?
Question mark.
Question mark is the answer.
Yeah. I think that's the answer you get.
That's not the answer. So he's had a hip injury. There's misdiagnosed potentially. There's a lot of factors that go into this. No, he's not just trying to transfer. He's not just trying to get this degree from USC. He wants to play. He wants to get back.
Yeah.
But the medical staff hasn't cleared him at times. It's a very complicated issue, but there are some answers there, not just question marks.
It's a lot of questions.
You too.
I'm tired of it. Even thinking about it, he's not around. It's just.
I did see him on Saturday at the Adidas quarterback camp. Showed up and I was like, "There's Daniel Monbebe. That's interesting." Can I jump in with a Facebook question,
sure.
Shoddington? Andrew Ball says new president Carol Folt is supposedly an athletics fan. Hopeful thoughts? ? Ryan, have you heard anything more about Carol and what she plans to do come July 1st?
Oh yeah, I've heard a lot of people are telling me. 100% she's coming in and cleaning house, getting rid of Lynn Swan, and I've had other people come in and say, 100% she's coming in. She's not going to be doing anything. She's going to let the athletic department go for a while because she's focused on other things. I think people are speculating quite a bit. We don't really know what she's going to do. I think you're going to know right away if she's not making big moves in that first week she's there. If you don't hear changes in the athletic department, it's hard to picture that happening. You're going to change your athletic director right before the football season? I would think that's something you're planning now, and once you take over, if you're going to make a change or big changes or whatever in the athletic department, you kind of have to do it right away. So we'll know. I think early part of July, we should probably know a lot, but we just don't know. It's there's a lot going on right now at USC, as you know, and she's going to have a lot of fires to attend to. More seem to pop up all the time. Will athletics be a priority? Will it, and if it is she going to make big changes there? We just don't know at this point.
Yep, we do not know. Shoddington, I believe you're in the middle of typing a YouTube response.
Yeah, I'm just people that didn't appreciate my baseball talk, they can get over it.
Really? You did? I don't like baseball, and it was a couple minutes of just
people called it dugout vision.
It's a newsy thing that happened in USC athletics, and it was in the second hour of tunnel vision, which is only supposed to go an hour anyway. It's all bonus.
You guys were wondering, the USC baseball program is actually the most storied college baseball program. So yeah, it would be good if they were good.
Yeah,
it's a program they should have a lot of pride in. They've won 12 national championships. Not that football hasn't won that many. Just saying. Legendary Lurch wants to know, with Bru coming back, potentially, let's put that in quotes there, does that raise USC's ranking in the recruitment places for the 2019 class? Does it really matter?
And I don't think it will. So it counted, like, he signed with USC, and 24/7 Sports, because he transferred out right away, made him part of Texas's recruiting class. I think now, because he went through spring football there, he stays part of Texas' recruiting class. He's just a transfer to USC.
When Chris Steele left Florida, he did not affect. When he committed to Oregon, it did not affect their rankings. So I would say, but again, does it matter?
Yeah,
You want the player, not the ranking. And what's most important?
Bragging rights, I guess. I don't know.
Well, it would get them away. They were at 20, and they dropped to 22 when he left, I believe is what it was, something like that. So maybe that gets them back into a top 20 class instead of having the worst class ever at USC since there have been rankings. Brandon Jones, where would you want to build your network after your career is all said and done? Austin, Texas, or Los Angeles, California? Now,
it's a very personal question. It depends.
Exactly. It depends on what you're trying to, what your career is going to be in. I mean,
I don't get that.
Austin has great barbecue. If you're going into the food industry, they got South by Southwest. If you're going into, so there's a lot of stuff. Austin definitely has some draws.
Yeah, I mean, we love living in Southern California. A lot of people we talk to because they're USC people, but there's millions and millions of people that live other places in the country, and we assume a lot of them like where they live. So it's it really just depends on your own personality. Like, there's people that love Austin that moved from California, like, California sucks, taxes too high, blah, blah, blah.
Traffic's too bad.
There's tons of people that live in Austin that freaking hate California. So it just depends, Now, we love it here, but.
It's true.
Someone asked, or I guess it's a question, Bubba and Keely didn't play. How can they be missed? Because they were going to play. They were going to be the starters at those two positions.
Look at the depth chart for DBs and then come back to us.
I mean, we interviewed Bubba like the Thursday before the first game against UNLV. He was the starter, and then
until the next day,
or the Wednesday before, and then Thursday he was not around. So, and Keely Ross had played some, but he would walk in and be the starter right now.
He had a couple starts. Yeah. Also from the same person, I have a question. There's a lot of exclamation points there. What are SC's chances with Elias Ricks? Is SC still in the mix? They're still trying to get in the mix, but I don't think that's happening necessarily right now. We'll see where he ends up for school next season. Might have a big impact because two of the schools he's looking at are IMG and the University Lab in Baton Rouge. So if he goes to the University Lab for his final year of high school, don't expect him to leave, go anywhere else besides LSU.
Yeah.
That's literally like across the street campuses.
Yeah. A guy like Ricks, USC has to have a good season. Like, it's all going to be tied to how well does USC do on the field. You win the Pac-12 South and stuff, you're going to be in play with maybe not him specifically, but guys like that. If not, if it's like a 6-6 season or something, you're not going to be getting the Elijah Ricks kind of guys.
As far as recruiting goes, how big of a month is June for USC? I know they're going to have their Rising Stars camp, Elite camp. That's kind of when you see a lot of kids get offered, and some kids commit the day of. Andrew, I think it was it was Liam Jimmins.
Liam
Douglas. So many Liams. What are we expecting for June for USC in that regard?
I mean, there's guys that USC is waiting on to see in person, so you always want to do that at the camp. But I really feel like if you're talking, there might be 3-star action. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of 4-star action in June. I kind of feel like with the higher ranked guys, the people that are going to move the needle, you got to wait. It's going to be in-season stuff. I really feel like that's going to be the case. I think you could lay some of the groundwork for that in June, and the camps are, a really important part of that. But it's sort of with the season last year, if you want to bring in a lot of those really highly ranked guys, it's going to be because you had a good season, and that's going to enable that. I don't know if you feel that same way or.
I think it's a huge evaluation period, and you got to see guys, but that's also been something that's difficult to do. I mean, Gavin Morris talked about it, how hard it is to get guys to come to camp. If you're losing, do you want to go to the USC camp or do you want to go to a different camp? Where you're trying to impress the coaches at a different. That becomes the question. You got to sell them enough to get them on a campus to compete, because it's not like the USC camp. When Pete Carroll, there was no opening regionals. The USC camp was the place to go to show your stuff and to work on your ranking, to do it. Even if you had no interest in USC, you might show up at the camp and say, I'm going to go up against Tyron Smith. Let's see what he's got.
Yeah.
That type of thing. Now, not necessarily the same thing. And there's a lot of satellite camps now where, schools like Oregon are coming down and, schools from across the country are coming too. So there's a lot more opportunities for players to showcase themselves rather than just going to the USC camp and, having a chance to show it there. So they got to get them on campus first. So that's going to be big.
As far as Elias Ricks, we had some commentary by Armand Hawkins on Facebook. He says, hell no. USC could go undefeated, and he ain't coming to USC. Bet on that. So
All right, Armand.
There's some.
And Elias Ricks does play for the Ground Zero, or at least played for one tournament this season with the Ground Zero, the only tournament he played in this spring. So that.
And his son is one of the USC coaches. So
true. So
I think Armand, but I mean, we talked about that. Like, doesn't seem likely for Ricks, but I think there's guys out there that are highly ranked guys that USC needs to perform well to get them. And if not, then you're kind of looking at some plan B guys again. Like we saw a lot of that in the class of 2019.
Shotgun, anything else? It is 7:34. We're going pretty long.
We should probably wrap it
up.
Is there any word on Matt Fink and where he's considering going, or if he's thinking of staying? Wish him the best wherever he ends up. Scott said, he let it be known that he is not committed to Illinois, even though that was put out by someone else. That he was already, announced that he was going to go there, but he said that that's not true. He's not made a decision yet, so that's still up in the air. I don't think there's been really anything new for that.
Yeah.
Yep. Alrighty. I feel like that's going to wrap
show,
it up.
We had a lot of activity. I think we had some
yeah.
Texas people that were kind of interested in what's going on.
Really interesting. Okay.
Yeah, there's some people chiming in on Periscope and stuff. But there was, someone said, who was it? Brennan, Austin is amazing. Yeah, I think Austin's I said it earlier, it's one of my, very cool city. I love it. It was really cool to make that trip. We had a huge, speaking of events, we had a huge event in Austin.
That was our last big event.
There was 250 people we had on a road game to come to Austin. So that was at a bar that held 200. So it was we packed that freaking place.
And Dan says it's the best part of that whole weekend. not the game. It was the meetup.
But the meetup was great. Yeah, we had a lot of fun with that. So yeah, it's whatever. That was good stuff.
Good stuff.
Great show. Thanks for everyone. We got the calls. We got the tweets. Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, everyone was all over it. So thank you for the interaction.
Thank you so much. Again, if you guys want to see us, talk some football, have some food, some beer if you like it, June 1st, Saturday, come meet us out there.
Common Space Brewery in Hawthorne, California.
If you forget that, the details are on uscfootball.com, so you can check that out.
Or tweet Keely. She'll tell you. Keely is my name.
Sure, tweet me. Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate it. Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up. That's Shotgun. That's Ryan. I'm Keely. We'll see y'all. This show's on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. We'll be back next week. We'll see y'all then. Bye.
See ya.